Mine. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the tavern. It's episode 53. Never would have thought we would have gotten past 20, but here we are at 53. And tonight I have an interesting guest. I have a very exciting guest. This guest loves Dwarven Forge. Now, if you were here a couple weeks ago when we had Tony Sloan on here, he is another big fan of Dwarven Forge. But I found Tony through this guy. So that's kind of this unique thing that he went first. Now, Todd is a YouTube, or he runs a YouTube channel, or not YouTube. Oh my goodness, hold on, reverse. He runs a Facebook group out there that is all about creative ways to use terrain. Now, this can be Dwarven Forge, this can be Warlock tiles, this can be your own homemade stuff. But the stuff that's coming out of this man's house is incredible. And I had to get him on the show to talk about it because he not only has ways to have fun with this stuff in a game setting, he tells stories with it, which is even more exciting for me. So before I continue to just ramble, I'm going to let Todd say a couple words.
James, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I saw the job that you did when you talked with Tony and Eric, and I was immediately hooked. I was like, this is going to be a show that's going to be very successful. So I really appreciate the opportunity for allowing me to talk to your fans.
Yeah, no, definitely. We really just built this show. We built this about a year and a half ago now. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. And it's developed into a way to help players and game masters just think of outside the box ways of increasing their game. And that could be maps, that can be characters, that can be how you portray the story. But tonight, it's all about terrain. It's all about how to use your environment to tell the story. So what I always bug my guests with first, and it took me almost a year to figure out because for some reason I would ramble off 3 questions at my guests all at once, and I'd only get 1 question answered. And I feel like that's just something that's ingrained in us. But the first one is, how long have you been playing tabletop gaming?
Well, that's a little harder to say. I started back in 1983 in middle school.
Okay.
And it was all, obviously back then, it was all theater in the mind. Occasionally there was a few Ral Partha minis, but there was no terrain.
Right.
We didn't even have that many minis. So 9 times out of 10, it was dice for goblins. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3, and those are my goblins. And
I thought you used gummy. I used jelly beans. So that way, when the goblins died, you could stay.
Absolutely, that works too. We did dice for goblins though, and we didn't even have dry erase mats or anything like that. So there was no 5-foot squares or anything. So it was all theater of the mind, and it was great. We loved it. It was way back in the Holmes D&D Basic Edition.
Yeah.
Remember the old box set from that? Then we graduated to first edition and second edition, and I dropped out for third and fourth edition. Life happens. I joined the Air Force and got a career going, but then. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago, I kept seeing ads for 5th edition, even though it'd been, out for a little bit. And I was like, they're saying it's so good. Let me just go check and see what's going on. And so I went into a drop-in game, and at one of the stores, I think they called them encounters at the time or whatever it was. But you could just go in and sit down, and they just run a
kind of like modern day Adventure League.
Yeah, basically that. It was so I went and I sat down, and the rule set was much more streamlined than obvious. There was no Fako like there was back in the day and stuff.
Right.
So it went smooth, and I was just hit by the bug again automatically. I was like, oh man, I gotta, I want to go play D&D some more. So I'm gonna get a group together. And one day when I was at one of the local gaming stores, I bought, I'm trying to think of what the name of it is, Reaper Minis. They had these little, obviously unpainted stalagmites. Just a few sets of stalagmites, unpainted, white, look like crap. And when I went to run one of the games, I put a few of those on there along with the rest of the drawing that I had on the board. And something in my head just went, oh my God, I love this, right? Because I noticed all the players did this. They leaned forward when their minis got closer to it. I mean, this is unpainted on a, there's, hardly anything.
Yeah, but when you unpaint something on a 2D platform,
right,
with just drawings from your dry erase marker,
Right.
you're exactly right. It
It,
brings people
it,
closer to the
it's
story.
it stood out. I mean, I could just watch, and I was watching the visceral reactions of those people, and I realized in that moment that what it did was it did the part of the storytelling for me. And what I mean by that is the reason we all play D&D when we play is because we want to play, we want to run our characters. The longer a dungeon master is talking, the less time the players are playing. Now, so what you want to do is you want to have good descriptions, but if you get so detailed that you take up like a 5-minute soliloquy, half your players are building dice towers at that point, and they're checking their phone or whatever it is, and they've forgotten what you said. And by the time you get around to the fifth character, the fifth player, you have to reiterate the stairs are 30 feet over this way, just past the thing. And terrain gets rid of all that. It's not that I don't describe it, of course that I do, but I just have to do more about setting the mood, and then the terrain does the rest of the storytelling for me. As far as what you see, you enter, a goblin's barracks, and you can see some barrels on the side, and I just point out a few of the major things, but mostly I talk about the things that it can't represent, the sounds that they might hear, the smells that they might have, the sweat that's beating off their forehead because the temperature is a little higher here, or it's a little colder and they shiver or something. And they're ready to go. They're off and running, because presuming, of course, there's a story that I've built ahead of time for why they're going to the tower or whatever the case may be. They're off and ready to run because they want to actually explore, because it's visually interesting. And once you've got them wanting to explore, that's it. They're already hooked. And it gets the buy-in into the game. They're emotionally invested. And I actually find, as much as people always say, well, I only do terrain for combat, terrain is fantastic for bringing out the role play in your players, because they get emotionally invested in the story. The only time they're going to see terrain as combat only is if that's the only time that you bring it out. I produce my whole session. I lay the whole thing out. Obviously, I cover it with either black cloth, or with a black poster board or something to do some fog of war. And I also do stuff, by the way, to fake them out. I'll build something and I'll just cover it, and there might be actually nothing under there whatsoever. So they learn not to trust their eyes. There may not be a thing underneath this. Or there may be nothing over here, and then I've got a portable terrain tray that I bring over, and the secret door opens up and it goes to that thing. So it goes to that room. So there's ways of masking the terrain so they don't see everything, and they stop plotting ahead, and they stop going, well, we want to get to this room over there, because they don't know if there is a room over there or not. So there's good ways of hiding all that stuff and keeping it still the surprise that you get from theater of the mind, but the detail that you get from visually being able to look at the story as it unfolds before you. And it just has those benefits.
I love that. Truthfully, I think that is an amazing idea to do. I think more so we should use that more often. Now, when building cities and things like that, and city encounters, it's much more difficult because, first off, you need a lot more stuff. But for the actual location that they're diving into, whether it be, a fortress or a dungeon or a tomb or whatever they're diving into, to lay it all out and let the story tell itself no matter what room they go in is wonderful.
Cities actually are easy. There's a trick to cities. So, sure. So if you buy yourself some or 3D print or whatever you want to do, some houses, that you can get them from Zitterdres, Zitedres, which is like a hard phone product. Or there's other 3D houses that you can buy, either the STL files, or you can buy them pre-printed from like printable scenery. But you buy the houses. I don't paint the insides of them. I get the outsides painted, but I have them glued together so you can't go inside of them, because they're too small of an area to play in anyway. So I build the city just by putting the houses down in the area that I want. And then when they actually go into there, I have a room that I built out, and then I baggie up the stuff for each of the different types of houses that might go into. So if they go into a church, I've got a baggie that I pull out, and I put the inside terrain stuff in there that says, okay, you guys are in the church. And they go, okay, we're going to go over to we're going to go to the bank. Okay, and I pull that stuff out. I pull out another baggie, dump it in, and literally within like 10, 20 seconds, they're in that area. And there's more play space area than if you're just using the models. And the city itself
you got to build out so
very
you
quickly.
can just grab it and go, grab it and move. That's genius. Baggies, guys.
Baggier encounters. Yep. Sandwich baggies, just bag it. Same thing with the monsters or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Just put them all in a little baggie, and I have a little box that I have underneath my table, and I pull it out when I open up the counter, and I dump it out, and I can put it together in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, no, that's genius idea. Completely, I would have never thought about it. Never would have.
It speeds the process significantly, and it just allows them to go places that the players think that you wouldn't be able to do on the fly, but you can.
Yeah. So second question I have is, what got you, and if you can, I don't know if you remember this, because I mean, middle school is a long time ago for some of us,
Right.
But what got you into D&D at first? Like, what was the aha moment or the exciting moment where your eyes opened and you went, this is just cool. Like, this is just something, there's something different about it. There's something unique about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you still, because if you think about it, I mean, we played these games when we were kids, but now a lot of us we're so enthralled with it back then that now we're pulling it back out again as adults.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an interesting concept, because you don't see that as much as you would think with other things.
So for me, there's a funny part to this story. When Michael Vaughn, my middle school friend, first told me about Dungeons and Dragons, and I loved board games at the time, and he first told me about it, and I said, what's the board look like? And he said, there is no board. And true story, this is how short-sighted I was. My immediate response was, I remember it to this day, that sounds like the stupidest game ever. How do you play a game without a board, right? So, but I went to his house, we brought it out, and what hooked me was the artwork in the BX module and in the basic player's handbook.
I'm a little too young to, I've seen the BX module, but I've never actually
right. So keep on the Borderlands and the player's handbook, those modules, but it doesn't matter. The artwork in first edition of
right.
AD&D or second edition or whatever, it was the artwork that just sparked my imagination. And what's interesting is, if you tell a lot of people, if you say, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons, some people, they'll be just like, oh, I can't get into that, but they're enthralled by Game of Thrones. Why? Because they can see Game of Thrones.
Right.
So, I mean, as soon as I could see the artwork, I was like, oh my God, now I'm picturing it all in my head. And
really, in all honesty, that is what drew me to the company that I work with now, GUI Cube, because they give away, each one of their modules. Well, what they do is they took those old school concepts that they did back in second edition, the box sets, not I got a book now, and they layer it with 70 portraits that you can add for NPCs and handouts that you can give out for item cards.
Yeah.
And I guess it just brings that difference to the game compared to just sitting there and playing. Because if you're like, hey, here's what this person looks like, and he looks different than this person, he looks different than this person. And if you're playing around a table, it's great, because then if let's say somebody finds an item, you just toss them the item card instead, and if they can feel it, they can see it, they can feel it. It's not just something that they're told.
For a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, it's more real when you can see it.
Yeah.
It just is. And for game purposes, everybody's on the same mental page when they can see what it is that you're talking about. It just automatically gets, it gets everybody on the same footing of, oh, okay, that's what we're talking about. And they've all got the same picture in their head. And that allows the story to move along faster, because you don't have to answer 2, 3, 4, 5 different questions about, well, is it this, is it that, is it blah, blah, blah. And all that's eating up time that when I'm DMing, I try and get them to go to the fun adventures mode. I like to get to the points where that they want to talk about after the game is over.
Right.
Saying the exciting thing about how they made it past the trap, or whoever they, talked their way past the monster, or faked out this one guy, the guard, or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. But the more interesting things, as opposed to we're spending 20 minutes talking about what color is the potion bomb. So, which
and I completely, I respect that completely. Red potions. Okay, but is it really red? Like, well, what kind of red? Like, no.
Right.
Potion bottle here, hand you the card, go away.
Exactly.
Let's continue.
Exactly.
No, I like that. And I
It
think
keeps
that
them
really
focused on
does
the
help
important
me.
stuff. They don't get lost in immaterial details.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. And I really think that having that development of terrain, having that development of miniatures, having, cards ready for items. And mind you, some of these things are techniques that were used back in second and third edition that just now have been mainstreamed.
Sure.
Because I remember going to a table as a high school kid, and now mind you, my GM was not a high school kid. It was some 60-year-old guy who just has a whole world built for him, and we played at a college campus, and he would roll up with 2 suitcases full of books, binders, and index cards.
Right.
And when they've got this stack of index cards like this, and he goes, "You found this," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I see this." Like, and it'll have a little descriptor on it, but I can read that with my own time and energy rather than stopping the story from going.
Precisely.
So yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, I'm curious. So on the screen right now, we have a giant castle. Now, I'm telling you, this is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen on a table. I love castles. I have an addiction to castles. There is a part of me that if I ever make enough money from D&D, from whatever, I don't care what it is for, I want to just go gallivant Europe and just go to the castles. I don't care anything else. In the food. I love food. That's different.
Right.
Food and drinks, that comes with the experience. But the castles is where I am just enthralled. I can remember in high school and in early years of college where my parents were different. So a lot of parents went on vacations. They went to the mountains, or they went to the beach, or they went to an amusement park. My parents, especially my mother, was very interested in the same thing I was. So we would go through the East Coast and find all the big houses that are, 400, they're old, very old houses. But they've got 75 rooms in them. Like, who needs 75 rooms? What's the point of it? But there was a different time period. And I just think going to a castle like this would be fantastic to see something like that. So 2 questions with this. One, how long does this actually take to set up all of that? And the second question would be how long does it take normally to play through a setting like that?
Sure. So I run my campaign a little different than the way most people do. Most people, they'll buy, and obviously not everyone falls in this. I'm saying most people. So if somebody's listening and this is not them, don't think I'm attacking you, okay? So, but a lot of people, they'll buy the books from Wizards of the Coast, and they have a hard campaign that gets them through 15 levels, and it's all that. My campaign is more of a West Marches style, not precisely, but it's more location based, which is to say, I set up a basic back world. I tell them you're on this continent. These are the major players in the continent. So, these are, and then I kind of narrow funnel down to these are the people that are closer to you. I mean, you're not going to be speaking to the king when you're a first level guy, but these are the people that, you will. So I give them that kind of stuff. I give them stuff that they can grab onto. But then I just lay out story hooks and I let them pick whatever. The first session, we do whatever it is I like to in my campaigns. I like to take off of Elder Scrolls. And the first session, I like to have them be prisoners where they have to break out or they have to prove their innocence or whatever the case may be.
I love doing extra stuff than just the tavern. Mind you, I love the tavern because I think the tavern just brings back some very nuances and connections. But normally the tavern just is an easy way to connect players to say, this is where all your players would be potentially.
Sure.
But really, why are your players all going to work together is going to be the next step. And that's always the first step that you have to figure out in any campaign is why are they working together?
Well, when they're in prison and they're falsely accused, they're all working together.
Yeah, exactly. They all got to figure out a reason to figure it out.
And then once they've proved their innocence, the next thing becomes, and they're out of that one, the next thing becomes, well, do they want to find out who framed them? Now that's their choice. That's a hook. If they decide they want to find out who framed them, then they're going to go around the rest of the city. So
Right.
basically, I'll lay through the adventure. I'll go, okay, and you find, for example, there's a treasure map that's out in the forest someplace, and there's X marks the spot. You could go check that out next session. Or you could go start asking around and finding out who it was that framed you for this and why they accused you of it and what evidence they supposedly had. That's another hook. Or it could just be that there's merchants that are hiring people, adventurers, of course, to get their goods through the forest because
Right.
whatever. And I'll put out 3-4 hooks, and I have nothing done prior to any of these hooks because whatever my players decide, I've got 1 week to build out that story and build the adventure. And so I don't railroad my players into going any place. They tell me where they want to go, and then I flesh out the adventure specific to what they said they want to do.
Yes.
And that
100%.
way, I don't waste endless hours building physically or writing out on paper, endless hours creating parts of the world that they may not have any interest in. They literally are building the world 5 feet before they get there when they say,
Correct.
okay, I want to go do this. And then they show up, and if they say they're going to go to the castle, that's all they know. And I'm the one that's building out the story, and I'll have the castle and everything ready for them. And there'll be more plots and hooks, and they could either grab onto those, they could go to the rest of the story arc, they could go back to a previous session. Doesn't matter to me because I'm just building it as I go. Now, with that in mind, it only takes me about 3.5 hours for me to build most of my tables, including coming up with the storyline that goes along with it. For me, it's a symbiotic process. I have the vaguest of idea. Okay, there's a castle, and it's and there's an old guy that's in it that's running the castle, and for some reason he has information about why they got framed.
Right.
Okay, that's what I start with. And as I start laying out the tiles, as I visually see it, my brain picks up and goes, well, wouldn't it be cool if this happened here? And in this room, I could make this happen. And so
you're almost playing the game before you actually play the game.
Correct. What I'm really doing is, if I was a player, what would be fun? What do I think would be fun and exciting to do? Oh, it would be so cool if this happened. And what if this surprised me over here? And it's when I'm laying out the tiles, the same thing as like when I saw the artwork on the D&D books and stuff, that artwork what sparked my imagination to want to go adventure. Well, now it's 3D. So that sparked my imagination, and I start with the vaguest idea, and 3 to 4 hours later, I've got a complete table built up, and I haven't handwritten out what all the specs and everything are, but I know what the storyline is, and 9 times out of 10, I just pull out my stat tracker cards for any monsters and 3x5 cards for NPCs, and I just write down the basics that I need for them, which is basically 3 things about their personality. They're angry, or they're jovial, or they're miserly, or whatever, basically some kind of a disposition that they have.
Yeah.
And then what their personal interests are, what they care about, and then what they know that the players want. And if you have those 3 things, then the characters have to learn what to bargain with in order to get out of it. In other words, they have to find out what he wants, and they have to get through his personality to get there. And with just that little bit of information.
What you're saying is you could use a book like this.
Sure, absolutely.
No, Robert, the guy that was on our show last week, he literally built a book that is just 100 NPC, 1-page papers, and it gives you anything from mannerisms, backstories, goals, attack skills, where they might be located, and some basic stat points. And that can build any NPC out, and you don't have to fill it all out each time, because the NPC might not be attackable, or shouldn't be attackable, rather.
Right.
Because personally, I don't play my games like you would play in a Skyrim game. Partially because I don't think that I will be asking questions for my players very instantly if they're like, hey, I'm going to stab the merchant. Why? Like, are you just like, your character has not done this in 16 episodes?
Right.
What is the point? Well, I want that item. I start pulling metagame questions at that point. I'm like, do you want the item, or does your player want the item? Because
so there's a technique I use to curb that. which is in standard D&D, you just have experience points. That's assuming you're not using the milestone method, okay?
Right.
It's just experience points. Well, instead of using, 3,000, 5,000 experience points and that kind of stuff, I basically use two types of points. I use CAP, combat adventure points, and RAP, roleplay adventure points. And when you finish a combat, you get a 1 combat adventure point. Once you get to 20 points, you're going to get to a level, okay? But what you do is you put a ratio in there where out of those 20, 5 of them have to be roleplay adventure points. So you can keep killing all day long, but you're not going to level. And so when opportunities to start using roleplay come up, the rest of the players go, no, wait a minute. I want to get to my next level so I get my next whatever thing is. And so it gives them some encouragement, reason. Now they don't have to, but
interesting. Because I run milestone, which is very similar to the way you are. You're talking though, because I do require certain parts of the story to be connected to, or at least, but it's different for me because there is an overarching story.
Right.
Where yours is much more Westmark, which is fine. Right. There's no difference. There's no right or wrong way of playing that. I do like the idea though of you have to do so much in role play. You have to do so much in combat.
Right.
I would also, one thing I like to do is I like to be very personal with my players as well. It's like your character has to achieve something that is of somewhat worth to you.
Right.
To level as well, because if you're just skating by in the back on the coattails of everybody else, really you're not leveling. You're not improving yourself. You're not getting any experience for yourself. You're just holding in the background. So I like that, and I think that's one thing that I'll definitely keep in the back of my mind from now on when I'm leveling.
It's not only what's interesting about that though is you can tailor it to your players, because if you've got a new player, you can say you only need 2 role play adventure points because you're new at this and it's hard for you, and then somebody else who maybe they want to push more, okay, you're going to need 7 role play adventure points out of those 20 in order to get to level. You can customize for each of your players in order to help encourage them, and if they make that, they get their rewards faster. So it gives them an incentive to try and get there, but at the same time, you can customize. I mean, you don't put everybody on a treadmill at the same level of intensity, somebody who's never been on one and somebody who's been jogging for 20 years. Right? You got to change the requirements there. So people that are newer and not as familiar with it, you can lower those numbers down a little bit and make it within reach. And once they reach the first one, I can do this. Once they start to get that confidence, you can start bringing the level up for them, and you make them feel more and more comfortable with it. At least that's how I go about it.
No, I like that 100%. I think that's awesome. And without knowingly, I do a lot of times, something I learned very quickly when playing with random people or playing with people that I've built through professional role playing and that kind of thing, where they're paying me to play the game. It was interesting to add items like that, like where you're like, hey, at the end of the session, where do you guys want to go next? What's the next step for you? Here's the hooks, or here's the ideas that we have planned. What's your next project?
Yep.
And I was shocked with how many people were okay and interested in that option.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I've tried to get very good at not allowing people to take additional hooks in the middle of a game.
Right.
Because I think it does. You go in sidetracks, you get lost, and then you come back and you ask the players, well, how'd you like that session? Well, we didn't really like it as much.
Right.
Did you know that you took 3 other additional hooks that I had to come up with on the fly?
Right.
Well, yeah. Did you like them as much? No. Well, why? Well, because I didn't really get what I wanted out of it. Okay. Let's go back to the drawing board then. How can we fix this? Right. And a lot of times I hear that exact thing at the end of the session. Hey, we're here. We're at this cliffhanger of the session. These are the directions you guys are going to go next session. Which ones are you planning on going on?
Sure. Do you use a FOE at all? A framework of expectations? So what I do is I have I don't know if anyone else calls it that, but when I designed it, this is what I call it, a framework of expectations. And what it is in writing, And it's great for lots of things. When you first start putting your campaign together and you've got your friends or whoever,
Right.
I put all the stuff down in this that are more likely than not to cause a campaign to end if people didn't know it going in. So it's going to be this rule set. If I have any homebrew rules, I put those homebrew rules in there so they can see what they are. This is what happens when your character dies, your chance of coming back, or whatever the loss of gold, or whatever you do in your campaign, it doesn't matter. The point is you just need to spell it out. Whether or not player versus player is allowed, or only under what circumstances, so that one person doesn't do all the things that cause arguments, that cause a campaign to end because the drama is between the players and not between the characters, right? All those kind of things I build into the framework of expectations. And one of them is you're going to get plot hooks throughout there, but you're going to finish the plot hook that we're in for that session, and then you pick at the end to go. Because as I tell people all the time, I'm the dungeon master, I'm not the player's slave. I've got a full-time job, I've got a great girlfriend, I'm taking care of some people, you know what I mean? So I take the time and effort to build this in. You said you wanted to go here, so let's go play this out, and then whichever hooks you want to go through, whether it's from this new session or whether it's from any previous one, is fine with me. You can decide at the end of the session where you want to go next. And the way I kind of square that is, you said you're married, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's say you ask your wife on Monday, hey, honey, what do you want to do on Friday night? And she says, I want to go see great movie X, the new Marvel movie, and I want to go to dinner Y at restaurant Y. And you say, great. And you phone up and you get the reservations for the dinner, and you buy the IMAX tickets. And then Friday comes, the limo comes, and it picks you both up, and it drives you to the door, and the guy opens up the door, and she looks at you and she says, I don't want to do any of this. Question, are you a bad husband? No.
No.
Right? It would be ridiculous. You'd be like, wait a minute, you told me you wanted to do this. I put forth all the effort to give you what you said you wanted. And then when you get to the doorstep, you change your mind. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I look at it that way. I ask people, and then I honor what they say they want to do. I put everything I can into building out the adventure they say they want to do. And I've been fortunate enough that they're genuinely into the adventure, and I never have any problems. I never have somebody going, I want to go left, or kind of, everybody's into the storyline as far as that's concerned. But it's also there in the framework of expectations. Look, I build this out so you can have the story visually, but there's no point in doing that if you just want to go anywhere all the time, which is great. You can absolutely do that. Go find a theater of the mind game. Find the play style that works for you. My way is not the right way, but I'm telling you, this is the way that the campaign's going to run. And if you don't think that'll work for your play style, then just by reading the framework of expectations, they know this isn't for me, and we saved everybody a whole lot of time.
Which makes perfect sense. I also think it's great for people like us who like to have maps ready, who like to have, locations built out, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's so hard, and my players know this, my players have seen this before, to scroll through, and this is on an online basis for myself, but to scroll through a list of maps to be like, this one, none of these match that I need. And I'm just like, okay, let me throw this one up there. And it loses that authenticity where, like you said, if you would have told me at the beginning of the week, hey, we want to go, you mentioned that there was this artifact, and we've been, everybody's kind of not had a new item in a while, and this person said it's part for his god. We want to go gallivant through that cave.
Right.
Okay, cool. And then I know to make, 4 or 5 maps built through the cave to build the encounters out and to build the world out.
And you can make a hyper detailed, fleshed out world for them that's exciting and interesting to be in, where they said they wanted to go. Right. And you're not wasting any of your time building something where they're not interested in going. So to me, it just makes the most sense for somebody who may not have endless amounts of time. I know everybody looks at my builds and they think, you must, be retired. No, I work a 40-hour-a-week job. I've got a girlfriend, I've got things that I've got to do, chores and so on and so forth. And but the key is I only spend my time doing the things that are actually going to make a difference at the table for the players, because they said that's what they wanted. So it's a more effective, in my opinion, it's a more effective use of my time. Now, I'm not saying it's right for everybody, but it works well for me.
Yeah. And I've seen it work very well for us as well. Actually, that's kind of how we built out our newest project on stream, because we have it where the guest, it comes in and they work directly with the game master to have the plot. Like, it's okay, this is their problem, this is their, then they need a solution for it. And then our other players who are there around the table, they're there to help complete that quest, but there's still a direct thing going on. It's not, they don't know where they're going and whatnot. Nope. We know that at the beginning of the session, this is the cook that they want to take and this is the direction they're heading. And we've seen some serious, just amazing role play, amazing combat,
because it's
descriptions
focused.
are on point.
It's focused. That's I mean, there's a reality TV. Everyone who really understands what they're watching at, it's not real TV. It's not reality. It's it's not actual people doing whatever they feel like they want to do. It's all scripted out, because otherwise, how do you have a cliffhanger at the end of every single week? Do you have one of those in every single week of your life? No, of course not.
No.
So if you've got a focus on what you're like, hey, this is what we've all agreed that we're going to do, and they all focus on doing that, you get teamwork, you get cohesion, you get you get that, you get all the psychologies and pathologies working together, trying to find, well, this is what I'm good at and this is what you're good at, and we can do this together in order to get to where we need to go. But you can't do that if you're trying to deal with a whole bunch of ADHD cats that are just all over the place. I mean, can you imagine what Lord of the Rings would look like if every one of the players had wanderlust in a different direction? Wouldn't have been much of a movie or book, would it?
Right.
No. The reason it works is because everybody stays together and everybody focuses on whatever the task
right.
is. Absolutely.
And you see what happens when they're not on the same task. They
Correct.
The party.
Correct.
But yeah, no, this is, and I'm loving this talk. Like, seriously, this is the type of stuff I love to talk about on this show, because it's a way to help the players, the way to help the game master. It's a way for the game master to be able to kind of reel in the players a bit and say, hey, I don't have 16 hours of time to plan out every potential direction you could go.
Sure.
I had a friend of mine who is a very well-known, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to have anything come back against him, but a very well-known game master who does streaming and does all this craziness. And he has mentioned many times that, if it's a hook I don't have planned, don't give the hook.
Right. Well, that's one way. Yeah. See,
and I didn't realize that until he had mentioned it to me, and I was like,
I'm the flip side of that. I give the hook, but they don't get to go for the hook until the next session.
Right.
It's the same effect, though.
Yeah.
He's saying, we're not going to do the hook right now because he doesn't have it ready. I say, I'll give you the hook, but at the end of the session, that's when you can choose to grab it and go in that area. Same idea.
Map. So if you're like, you find a map of a location down the road, at the end of the session, you're like, well, I want to go check and see where this, I want to try to find out where this map leads me to.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's next session, though. That's not now.
Correct.
You can't find the map and immediately go, okay, I'm exiting the dungeon now, and I'm going to go look for the map.
Exactly. I know we need to bring this ring to Mount Doom, but boy, that's a cool looking cave over there. So I'm just going to go ahead. It's not how that's not how the great stories generally tend to go.
Right. Agreed. And sometimes it's more of priority, right? But I do like the idea that you prioritize based off of a plot point. So at the end of the session, you're like, okay, where do you guys want to go next?
Right.
You've been given A, B, C, D, and E, and personally, I guess it would be one of those things where I would have to decide really if I want to continue to remind my players of those plot hooks. But there are going to be some of them that you're going to want to remind your players. There could be some secret ones you're like, I told you this once. You don't bring it up. That plot hook was kind of, sorry, you don't get the cool plot hook.
Well, in some things, I don't even give them a plot hook. I basically give them a direction. I might say, okay, you can go after the buried treasure. You can go talk to this NPC in town, or you could head back to the port city and you could try and sign up with some buccaneers or something and go pirate hunting. and you want to just start a pirate adventure campaign and you want to move in that direction. Okay, let's do that. Or you just want to traipse out into the forest and see what you can find. If that's what you want to do, that's okay too. It doesn't even have to be one of my plot hooks.
But you're gonna say for the next session though, you're playing in the forest for the next 4 hours.
Right, or what? And then it's my job to make the forest interesting and a place where they want to be for the next 4 hours.
Right.
So whether it be because there's some druids there that are that are have questions about people that are infiltrating their land, or whatever the story may be, right? Treants that have gone, treants gone wild, whatever. So you got to make it.
That means that they've just been stripped of their bark, or does that mean that they went crazy?
Yep, that could be it. So they are not modest treants, but the point is, they tell me where they want to go, and it's my job. And this is what I like most. Instead of, and this is a personal preference, this isn't about right or wrong. My personal preference is I don't have 20 pages that I have to read and memorize. I get to use my imagination and come up with an exciting story that I think will fill the next 5 to 6 hours of their time the next time they come to play, which is what each one of my boards is. It's 5 to 6 hours. So it's usually about 5.5 hours of game time. And we eat while we play. There's not, you know what I'm saying? It's that we keep the ball rolling. Yeah. And then to keep it, one of the things that I do, and I do all the housekeeping between sessions via text. So if somebody wants to go shopping, that's fine. We do that via text over the week. And what happens is they all hop on and they talk about their strategies, about what they want to do next. And, we need to get this, we need to do that. So by the time we get to game day, we do the fun stuff. We don't do I'm going to go talk to the shopkeeper for 25 minutes while the rest of everybody else is bored out of their minds. Right. We stick to the adventure stuff during adventure game day, and all the housekeeping stuff is done throughout the week, so that we're ready to rock and roll when we sit down in chairs.
I think I could do that, other than the fact for me would be I would have so many text messages because I run 3 games.
Sure. Well, I never say that what I do is right for everybody. I just say this is what works for me. And I always say
if I had one dedicated table and that was the idea, I would definitely love to do that. I think for me, I might plan it though is allow players 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes of the game. If we want to do anything that's mundane and a waste of everybody's time, we do that the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of the game, and everything else is kind of done through the story. Sure. I might implement that myself, because for my paid games, it's true. I do like to give people those days where they just want to go gallivant the city. Right. But at the same time, I would hate to burn precious money and time for my players to go shopping.
Right.
It's cool when you are, and I know this is going to hit some people's nerves, and it's not for everybody, because people watch streams like Critical Role where they take a half a session to go shopping and they describe every single outfit that they bought. Right. First off, one, the players knew beforehand. There's no way that they made all that stuff up on their head at the beginning before they came to the table. So remember that before you start yelling at me about this crap. And 2, it's not as fun for a lot of players. No. And that's more so built for the audience to have a description than it is for the players to have a lot of fun doing it. Sure. And again, if you're looking and love Critical Role, and I have nothing but positive things to say about all of them. Correct. But they're all professional voice actors that do that stuff for a living. That is not what the result is going to be with the average players. That what you're going to have is one person super interested in shopping and everyone else bored out of their mind thinking, man, next week, should I budget these 5 or 6 hours doing something else? Because I don't want to spend this time just sitting here watching somebody spend non-real money to get non-real stuff for things that won't matter. I came here to, swing on the rope across the, across the deck of the ship and take out the pirate captain or whatever. Yeah, right? Yeah, no, I completely 100% agree. And I really think that is where a lot of people see the difference. Mm-hmm. And then at the other sad time is they don't see it, because then they're wondering, well, why is it that their games are like that and our games aren't? Well, partially because every single person on that stream is a professional actor. Correct. They understand the process. They understand how production is supposed to flow. And you'll notice in many cases on any of the bigger streams, if a hook is given, they seem to have already, there's prep for that hook, no matter what. And I've had the luxury of seeing some things on Twitter with Matt Mercer's notes. His notes are much more detailed than you would expect. And it's for people who don't have, a 40-hour work week in only one game.
Right.
And like me personally, I have 40+ hour work week because I'm active duty military and that can always extend. I have 4 crazy, beautiful boys handsome boys that are a lot of energy, and a wife who needs taken care of, and 2 streams and 2 games. So I'm packed to the brim.
And that's literally precisely the kind of thing that goes into, in my opinion, when you're laying out the framework of expectations. These are the rules, and these are why the rules are here, because I have time constraints.
Yeah.
And as long as you're dealing with rational people that, oh, okay, I get that. He's putting in way more time than I am in this. So if this is what,
I mean, I will admit, all of my players are fantastic players. They pay generously, they take care of me, but when they hit the table, and this is one thing I will tell anybody who wants to go into professional gaming, the one thing I noticed differently is the expectation changed when there was money involved.
Right.
And the reason I say that is when it hits 9 o'clock, my players want to play. 9 o'clock, when it hits the beginning of our session, they want to play. And they want to play until midnight when all of our sessions end. Right. So normally what I'll do is I'll take about 10, 15 minutes out of my own time, log in early, talk to the players, make small talk. And then at 9 o'clock, I kick off Sirenscape for the sound to start, and everybody knows it's time to, the intro is about to start. And this is where you set the scene for the session. And I'm sure you have a similar mentality with your tables.
So I'm not actually a professional DM, believe it or not. I just do this for fun. I don't charge my players anything.
No, I mean,
which is, I don't care either way. It doesn't matter to me. But by the same token, when 5 o'clock, when noon comes on Sunday and we're ready to sit down, I'm ready to play. So we keep if you want to do some chit chat and small talk, I always say, hey, the doors open a half an hour early. And so we can get that out of the way before. And then when noontime hits, we're off and running, and we're starting the story, and we're getting into it. So, and that's just how I do it, is I give them a little bit of chat time ahead of time, but they know when noon comes, we're in business and let's rock and roll.
Yeah, no,
so
I agree.
Because there's 5.5, well, I have more, because I have more than 5.5 hours content. So one of the things that I do is a segue, if I may. Sure. So let's say that the adventure that I design has 5 encounters. I'm just making up a number, okay?
Right,
So if in order to tell the story it has 5 encounters, I will probably design 8 encounters or 9. And the other ones are just extra encounters that if they do really well, instead of me nerfing them for coming up with a good idea and saying, well, your idea won't work because I need to fill up the time. If they come up with an idea to bypass an NPC or a monster, I let them succeed because I want to encourage creativity. But it's my job to have some more encounters in my back pocket that I can lay down to occupy, not to punish them, but to give them more fun things to do. And that's how I make my time limit, is I have more stuff than what we can play.
Right.
But if they burn through something quickly, I can just drop it in there. And if they go at the rate that I think that they're going to go at, I can save that encounter, and I might be able to use it in some other adventure in the future.
Of course. No, definitely. I always have 2 or 3 pocket encounters that I'm like, okay, this is the area. So this is the major area that they're going to be in. So I know you could run into this, or this. Okay, cool. Put these in my pocket just in case I need it, just in case they burn through the actual story itself. Or, maybe they do take a loose hair and they find a secret passage. Okay, that secret passage was planned, or there were 4 different places you could have found secret passages in the building. Right. This is what you'll get no matter what.
Sure.
Because, that's just how, because it's the other thing I really don't like to do is if I have something really cool that I want to have my players see, and they all of a sudden just miss, they miss it all the time, rather than me trying to come up with 4 different cool things for my players to get, I find 2 or 3 different locations where they could. So if you say, oh, you walk into a room, can I get an investigation check? Sure. Everybody rolls under 10. Okay, you don't see anything in this room, or you've taken your hour long to search every nook and cranny and you can't seem to find what you're looking for. And then they move into 2 other rooms down the road, and you mentioned, the walls look a little, they roll a high perception check. Okay, the walls on the back wall seem to have a different color to them. Oh, well, let me go look at those again. Okay, well, now they can realize they can slide the wall away and there's a secret room. And not everybody can build that into their maps directly, but you can at least share that with people and then be like, oh, cool, you found the small room under the staircase or whatnot. And then they're not missing out on those opportunities, but at the same time, I didn't have to plan 5 opportunities because they missed out on 4 of them. It's kind of things like that. So we had an opportunity to talk a couple days ago, and you had mentioned something, and it's kind of where the name comes from. The devil is in the details. And I love this quote because after you had mentioned it to me, is the terrain is awesome, but the story is told in the things that are inside the room, correct?
Correct.
So I'm going to ask our tech guy if he can bring me up a close-up version. I don't care what the picture is, and we're going to describe some of these details in there to tell the difference of the story, because these are the things that I really like.
If he pulls up this picture that I've changed my background here, that's a good one for this.
Okay.
Close up.
Yeah, if we can find that one. Because this picture is, like you said, it looks like a tomb or a dungeon that they stumbled into. Let me see here. I'm gonna try to do this before it pops up on our screen. So is that a ritual or are those grave robbers?
So those are adventurers in this particular case, but that's immaterial to the main thing is you can see that there's wrecked walls that are around this tomb. He hasn't brought it up yet, so I'm kind of leaning so that people can hopefully. I leaned on the picture.
Completely.
My invisibility spell is working. This is fantastic. I can't attack. I'll disappear. So, but you can see that there's a tomb that's been knocked open. There's some broken walls that are around it inside of the room itself. So it's almost like there's some kind of a mausoleum. He's saying he doesn't have that pet. That's okay. I'm just slanted aside. So there's some torches that are hanging on the wall. So which gives you a feeling there's more than one. There's several of them. So the multiple torches probably tells you whoever it was that was buried in here had money or had power, because they're worth the expenditure of having torches and stuff put on the wall and having a mausoleum built and stuff. So it's a square room, but it's not the square room that tells the stories. It's the broken walls inside. It's the sarcophagi that's been knocked off, that's in the center of the room. It's the torches. It's on the doorways themselves. There you can see there's some red wood basically that makes it more like royal looking. It's those details that if the previous rooms don't have any torches and the previous rooms don't have any of this other stuff in there, instantly before I say anything, the player's mind goes, this is a different place. There's something different that's going on in this room. Now, of course, I then describe whatever that they smell or any sounds that might be going on, and if there's inscriptions on the wall or something like that, or across the tomb, I would give that information as the dungeon master. But basically, just pulling the black cover off of the top of this room, when players look at it, the same thing happens. Everybody does this. They lean forward to get a closer look for what's going on.
They're trying to get to see all the details. They're trying to see where the differences are.
Because the detail tells them there's a story going on here, and they'll start figuring it out even while I'm still talking. They're awesome. Already double invested in it. So now on the other hand, if you pull off the thing and there's all these bookshelves that are covered with books and stuff, and there's transcription tables or whatever that's going on there, then you've some kind of a library for an arcanist or something.
Right.
And there's a story. So, and then one of the books is open and it's written, and then it's like a trail off on the book. Those kind of details that when they go in and they see that something, now I don't have it handwritten obviously in a 28 millimeter thing, but I can point to the table that has a book on there, and then I fill in that last little bit to it. You see that book that's on that table right there that looks like somebody's writing, and then they were writing something and it got scribbled off. Well, now they want to read the last few sentences to see what was on that person's mind before they were pulled away. Pulls them right into the story.
Yeah.
So those details, when they can see that, they're going to lean forward to try and figure out what's going on, what's different about this, how does this either link up with what we're already studying or we're on the trail of, or is this some fresh new hell that they have to, to contend with, that they, that the DM is launching as a surprise. In addition to this, you got this other thing that's happening in the dungeon over here as well, and you just, and this is the first clue or whatever to what it is. It's all those details.
And it's interesting because this specific picture, I love it because the casket is already open, which means somebody has already been there.
Correct.
Compared to if the casket was closed, which means somebody hasn't been there yet. So you automatically can see a difference with one change in the detail.
And it begs a question in your mind. Either is, before you get up close enough, is the person still inside the catacomb, the sarcophagi, or what did they take out of it and where is it now? And why did they take it? Either way, you've got a mystery on your hands.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of times you can let the players then write the mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they come up and they look in and they don't see anything, or they don't see anybody,
right?
It could be a different story. If anybody's ever fought a mummy lord, it's not a fun thing.
The other thing is when the details are laid out in front of them, this again allows the players to role play easier because they can start pointing to areas of the room where they're going to go to. All right, where are you going to go? Paladin, where are you going to go? Cleric, where are you going to go? And they'll go check out separate areas of the room. You know what I'm saying? But they can, because there's details that they're looking at that are interesting, and they will naturally role play with one another as they talk about what they're discovering.
Yeah.
So it primes them to start role playing. And the way I say it is, everybody always says, and I think I told you this in our other conversation, but everybody always says that the book is better than the movie. But I noticed the movie sells a lot more tickets. And that's because visually interesting, it just it goes to, there's a reason, video killed the radio star because all of a sudden when they had the videos and stuff, it just made it so much more interesting than only hearing the music. Music's great, don't get me wrong.
It hits more than one sensory at the same time.
It engages more parts of your brain. And so then that makes you naturally more interested in it. So. No,
I like that. I really like that a lot too, because it gives us that opportunity to see it, right? Because that's the difference is we're talking about hitting as many sensory detail or as many senses as you can to tell the story to make it more immersive.
Correct.
And this is what we were talking about before we started the show is how then do you bring this into something like a virtual tabletop? And that is how you do it. You look for these little details. You add, there's a difference between walking into a room that's, 40 by 40 feet compared to a room that's 40 by 40 feet and there's broken walls in between and there's rubble on the ground. Because I know how to build something like this in a 2D world on some of the web design or some of the map making software we have. But if you don't think like that, you're not seeing the picture come together fully, which I really, I'm every week I get a new guest and they always give me something to at least go, I never thought of that. And it's because we have so much uniqueness in this community.
There's so many different ways to approach it. What I do a lot of times, I'll start. So true story. After any given session, my first thought is, well, all right, I lucked out. That went pretty good. Now what the hell am I going to do, right? So I've got to come up with a whole new story. And I go into my storage area and I pull that stuff out and I start. And I look at, they want to go to the swamp. So I go to my stuff that has, all my swamp stuff or whatever. And I start pulling out, and I'll pull out pieces or I'll pull out minis and I'll look at that and I'll go, what's this guy's story? or I'll pull out like a tree that's got skulls or something that are, you know, or spirits.
How can I connect this?
And my brain goes, what's the story behind this? And that's that visual, the tactile and the visuals, what gets my creative juices flowing to, oh, this would be cool. And then when it goes on the table, then I start putting some other stuff around it, and then it keeps adding in it, and it kind of builds pebble by pebble. But for me, being able to see the details of the stuff is what actually fires the neurons in my brain that says, hey, there's cool stuff that you could do with this. I don't know if I have my terrain stuff.
Yeah, so we do have a couple pictures of the terrain stuff. He's got it up right now. Your storage like skills are blowing me away. First off, I would be stabbed for having that much stuff in my house right now. That is the after the new house is bought, that's when this will become a reality to this level. But I do have my little room that does do this.
Organization is necessary. Having it doesn't do you any good if you can't find it when you need it. And if you can't find it within a certain time frame, you interrupt your own creative flow process, and now it's lost anyway. So for me, I know within 2 boxes where something is. 99% of the time, I know where it is in the first box. If it's going to be my ice stuff, snow and stuff, it's going to be this box over here. If it's going to be mountaintop, it's going to be over here. If it's going to be like forest, it's over here. If it's going to be desert or pyramids and stuff, or Aztec, they're all labeled, and I know which boxes to pull out immediately, and I have the vast majority of stuff that I need right there. So, and then I put them underneath the table when I'm done building it, so I know exactly which boxes it's going back into.
Agreed. And that's just basic organizational skills right there to learn from. To have the level of storage and organization. See, mine is the level of space. Mm-hmm. Level of storage and organization I can do that fine. It's the level of space that I would need to contain some of this. I've already been threatened. The fact that I bought 2 Kickstarters about almost 2.5 years ago, when right before COVID hit, and they're about to fulfill themselves finally after 2.5 years.
I know that feeling too well.
I'll have about 700 miniatures coming to me that are unpainted.
Yep.
And now I got to figure out where the heck I'm going to pull them all.
And where are you going to paint them all?
And that too. That's going to become a new show probably. Or I'm just going to sit here on Tavern Talks and paint while I'm talking to you. So
I have a whole bunch of miniatures that I'm like, okay, these are my desert minis. These are my minis for town folks. These are my militia folks. These are and so I can just open up. You have the black boxes here that have the orange stripes. Those are I pop those open and they're all labeled. There's just tons of minis packed in different boxes inside each of those.
Right.
It's all labeled, so I know exactly what each one is, what they do.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they're types of minis, right?
Sure. Yeah, I have one whole section is one of those whole boxes is nothing but druid stuff. There's another whole set that's nothing but NPCs. One of those boxes filled with nothing but player characters. In other words, adventurer type guys that I need to pull.
Right. So you can either use for
another one is common low-level monsters. If I need orcs or goblins or gnolls or anything like that, or skeletons, that's the box I go to. Well, not skeletons. Skeletons are in undead. There's a whole box.
I was going to say skeletons will be in undead probably.
Yep. So I mean, I instantly just go grab the box that I need, and I have what I want.
You flip it open, you go, okay, I'll need this. I mean, I guess that at that point you're like, okay, which boxes do I need this week? Because you'll open up a box and you go, I could use this, close it, bring it to the table.
That's
okay,
exactly
this matches with it. Let's bring it to the table.
Yep.
No, I love that.
I got a box filled with what I call dungeon furniture. It's not really furniture, but there's, tables and stuff, broken tables and chairs and stuff that would go in there, treasure chests and stuff, little altars or whatever that people might find. There's just all kinds of knickknacks, weapons racks, all that kind of stuff is just what I call
dungeon furniture. So we know the big places where you can get stuff like terrain and miniatures. Mm-hmm. What I don't know, where do I get the clutter? Where do I get the furniture? Where do I get the unique nuanced pieces that make the story, right? What's your go-to, if you can share that?
So I have a couple of them. If you want them pre-painted, you want to go to WizKids, and they've got a lot of accessory sets, and they've got a whole variety of things. That they literally have dungeon dressings, and they have other things that you just buy it. It's whatever, $49 or $39, whatever it is. It's got a bunch of stuff in there, and it's all the same theme. So WizKids is one, and those come pre-painted. Another one, I get them pre-painted from griffinco.com, GRIFFONCO.com, and they 3D print stuff, and you go through. One of the ones I get compliments all the time. I've got an owlbear rug. Actually, I've got 3 of them. But I lay down, and it's just so iconic. People look at it, they always remember, oh my God, it's an owlbear rug. That's, because I have bear rugs too, but the owlbear rug, I'll put that in there. If I want a different, again, the devil's in the details. This person is wealthy. This person was an adventurer. There's something like that. It tells a different story than if it's just a bear rug. But griffinco.com, they're moving their shop. I don't know if they've moved to their correct location or not yet. It might have a thing coming up saying password.
They're only like 2 hours away.
So, and they do a fantastic job.
I live in Southern Virginia, so I was like, oh.
Yep.
They run out of Fredericksburg now, so
yep.
I might have to, as I continue to connect with more creators and crafters, I might have to give these guys a shout and be like, hey, can I come up and tour your facility? Because
those are excellent. And then the other thing you do if you can't find it is you go on to either eBay or Etsy. And just do search for 28 millimeter, whatever, 28 millimeter biotech, 28 millimeter swamp, 28 millimeter houses, 28, whatever. And you're going to find all kinds of 28 millimeter boxes and crates. I use tons of those for clutter and stuff and whatnot around things, 28 millimeter barrels. And you get those and have them send them to you, and you're good to go. You got to paint those up, obviously.
Right. I'll say there's another one. I was wondering if you would mention this one. So there's another one called Tiny Furniture.
Yes.
That is.
I haven't ordered from them, but I've seen their stuff and it looks fantastic.
It's expensive, but it's very, very, very detailed. It's and painted very well.
Right.
Like they're hand painted. I think the last thing I saw was like their bookshelves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is just so intricately detailed. It's impressive. Mind you, they probably painted 1 million of those things at one time. But
sure they did.
But it would be definitely something to have.
But that's where I go to get clutter. In order to change the purpose of the room. Is that, and you want to get some bookshelves, you want to get some desks, you want to get, some different types of beds, some beds that are like really nice and well made, and you want to get other beds that look like rickety old cots that might be in a goblin den or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, because there's going to be different types for different types of creatures.
I'm legitimately saving some of these websites because I think
sure
I'm going to reach out to Griffin Co. here in the next.
Oh, they're fantastic. I highly recommend
Griffin Co. is their website is currently down.
It's currently down because they're in the middle of moving. So
right.
I think, and I've spent a chunk of change with them. I think I've had maybe 2 minis that have been shipped that were broken out of the hundreds and hundreds of things that I've ordered from them. Maybe.
Right.
So
how long? Because I'm curious about this now.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've built such a massive collection, how often do you run into the fact you go, crap, I still need this?
I don't, this is going to sound strange, but I don't ever, even when I was collecting. And the reason is because I would never build anything that I didn't have the items I needed on hand.
Okay.
In other words, I would never plan out an adventure for something that I didn't have the materials in my possession, because I don't even trust overnight. Something will happen, I won't be able to show it, and now I can't write and tell my story properly. So I would always, but what I would do, which I don't recommend anyone else does, but what I would do is, so the short version is I spent 4 years first paying off all of my debts. That's the disclaimer. I didn't buy myself anything. I ate P&J sandwiches literally, and I filled up my gas tank with my car with gas, and that's like literally the only things I spent money on. But after 4 years, I got debt free. And then what I did is what used to go to my credit cards every month, I took a portion of that, and every single paycheck, I would put something towards terrain. And I would literally just go through eBay or Etsy, or I'd go to Amazon and go like Fairy Garden Furniture. Fairy garden
Yeah.
stuff can be the right scale for it. And I would just cast a wide net. On Amazon, what am I thinking of? Aquarium decorations are fantastic. A lot of those are great things that you can use over and over again. And I would just constantly buy stuff simply because I'd look at it and I would go, oh my God, I could tell such a cool story with this. And I just knowing in the back of my head, oh, I don't have enough of desert stuff now, so this will add to my desert collection. And when I get enough stuff, now I can start telling desert stories.
Right.
So I did it that way.
Okay.
I kind of did it the other way, where I didn't tell desert stories, for example, until I had enough terrain and gear on hand to begin telling them.
Nice. No, I like that, and I think that's a good way to do it. So if you are trying to live into something like this, oh, I apologize, Heroes of Evermore. I just noticed you guys popped in, and you're launching the sounds. I do not have Sirenscape up tonight, so I apologize for that. It slipped my mind. Oh, you played it? Look at you. This is why we got a tech guy on the ball. Look at that. Sweet. I love having a tech guy. He's our hidden gem, I'll tell you what. For anybody that's here, that just tonight, you'll find out that our tech guy was our barbarian from the Affordables, and he's amazing. Nice. So that is he stepped over to do full blown tech for us, because Sundays he's sometimes a little sleepier to be on camera, but that's okay, because there's days where I'm sometimes sleepy to be on camera.
Believe it.
I just take a Red Bull and I go for it. But no, it's one of those things where I like the idea that if I buy the stuff, that's the type of campaign I'm running. Like, it's not, okay, I need these 75 different types of miniatures and terrain and stuff like that for next week.
I tell people all the time, look at the type of campaign that you're going to run and then start with scatter terrain for the major areas that you'll use most often. Mm-hmm. So assuming you're in like a temperate climate, that doesn't necessarily be true, but assume for a moment that you'll be in a temperate climate for your right. campaign, then go to Monster Fight Club or Dwarven Forge or whoever and get yourself some trees, get yourself some rocks, go to Pegasus Hobbies, get yourself a river set or whatever. And that's all scatter terrain. Now most people's tables are not going to be 6 foot by 4 like mine. So you don't have near the real estate. So you don't need near the gear.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So you might be able to get away with 2 sets, maybe 3 sets of Monster Fight Club trees and 2 or 3 sets of rocks. Yeah, and you're set for the rest of your life on those things.
I need to look at some trees anyways. So for people that are going to be at Gen Con, mm-hmm. I'll be doing kind of a promo version of what he's got going on the last game board, which is a digital tabletop desktop that you can screen your ground level and you can place things on top of it and it tracks it all for you, which is freaking incredible. But we got offered as a beta tester and a beta guild through them after Gen Con last year, and that'll either be arriving in the next week or 2, or I'll be picking up mine at Gen Con, where we'll be running The Witch's Wrath, the adventure I wrote for GUI Cube there. So I kind of want to do a collaboration with the story I wrote and having that module set up there. So hopefully I can get enough time to play with it and find a couple Fight Club trees and stuff to place in the forest that they're going to be in. Nice. I'd love to build out the tower, but we're still waiting on the professional map to be done for it, so I can prepare for what that tower is going to look like, because though I wrote the adventure, the company that it was presented to then, of course, is doing the editing and projection and stuff like that. So I'm waiting on that final copy to come back to me so I can start to see what I have to prepare for. This map you've got here is cool because it's like 12 different types of terrain, I swear.
Yeah.
It's only 3, but still 3 or 4, but still. So what is the story behind this?
That one there is the top part is a mansion. It's a noble's mansion. It's supposed to be not an abandoned, but a reclusive noble who's out in the forest somewhere, and people are wondering what's going on with him because the usual. There's been strange sounds heard at night, and he's getting these weird guests and stuff. So the players go to find out, and it turns out that he's been co-opted by the Yuan-Ti because underneath his underneath his villa or manor, as it was, there's actually a magma flow, which provides enough heat that there can be an underground secret base for the Yuan-Ti, who like to, as we all know, co-opt nobles and stuff to begin weakening various governments so they can pull strings and whatnot and try and cause that. So that's basically the idea behind that, is you've got to go through, and it looks like a standard snake skull cult, but then as you get further into it, you realize there's some Yuan-Ti and there's all kinds of other good stuff going on there. So that was just the idea behind that.
I love the Yuan-Ti. I really enjoyed my evil Tomb of Annihilation campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Now my players, and they will all tell you this, what we normally do is I say, hey guys, what do you guys want to run? And most of my players have come with, they want to run this module. They think it sounds cool. And I always leave a caveat to it. This module will not be what that book says, just a heads up. Mm-hmm. And that's always what I tell them. And I've never had a fight about that question. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because one of two things. One, if they can pick up the module and read it, they still want to be able to feel differences. They want to not know everything. And the second reason is our evil campaign wanted to be evil.
Right.
And if you've ever read Tomb of Annihilation, there's really no reason for an evil campaign in that one. Everything is evil.
Right.
So why are the evil guys there? And we really delve into each of their backstories in that, which I had to figure out how to tie into the actual storyline. Mm-hmm. After a year and a half, they finally got to Omu. So it was like they just gallivanted around Cholt for a year and a half. But they were on that same mentality that you're talking about, where it was like the end of the session, well, where are we going next?
Right.
Well, what are we doing next? I think I would actually...
The advantage that I have with not being from a written book there's no way they can find a book and read what's going to happen next, because literally I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know what's going to happen next, right?
So, but by the way, if I could back you up for just a second, when you're at Gen Con, if you can go see, if you can go hang out at the WizKids booth for just a few, they're actually have a display for their tile sets now. And a few months ago, they had contacted me and asked me to go and actually design the layout for their tile sets. And
I'm pointing you somewhere.
That's what I did. Is I went through and they said you've got 18 inches deep and 67 inches wide, just long or whatever it is, in order to put all the tile sets in. So when you go and you see that, it's all their gear and it's all of their accessories and stuff. But I actually designed the tile set, design the layout, put the whole thing together, and then shipped it up to them. So you get to see it. And I guess they're going to run some kind of a promotion around it too. So
awesome. So I will definitely go there. I probably will try to, if mind you, the projection for this thing to be a full con for this year, after last year was a half con.
Right.
If the wireless signal is decent enough, I'll call you. But otherwise, I will take a bunch of videos and pictures to show you that, because this year, if I'm not running campaign adventures and not in a couple of the other extra things that I got prepped and ready to go, my goal is to take as many pictures on the floor, in the rooms as I can, because I missed doing that last year due to we had about half of our team for GUI Cube was out for COVID. So we had to pick up the pack and I ran probably 8-9 games that weekend.
Oh, wow.
It was a long weekend. And if I wasn't running games, a lot of the times I was at the booth helping them sell and all that fun. It was a lot. I didn't actually get into the vendor hall until Saturday. We'd been there since Thursday. So it was definitely gross when it just came the amount of time that we had to put into it last year. This year should be a lot easier. I have 4 games I'm running. That's it.
Okay.
Couple special events that I can't talk about because I can't.
Right.
And otherwise, I'm just going to gallivant, take pictures, put it up on social media. So if you are going to watch, keep an eye out on Tabletop Misfits social media for Gen Con in 2 weeks. Be posting all sorts of pictures and videos and try to get as much of our name and our stream out there at the same time. If you're going to be at Gen Con, make sure that you give a holler to us. We're either going to be at if you find the Gooey Cube booth, ask for the Misfits, and somebody will direct you to us. Gooey Cube works wonderful with us, and we've loved to work with them. And I'm excited to see that, because I'm excited to see this the WizKids display. I think you and I have already talked about it, and what it has a little bit of what it's going to be in it, but at the same time, I'm not going to spoil that love. I'm going to go there and I'm going to be just as in awe as everybody else. If you've never been to Gen Con, I highly recommend it for tabletop gaming. It is amazing. Normally, last year I know Cobalt Fight Club had a huge display out as well, and you could actually look through this cavern that was built up and you could see the battle inside, and I was like, this is so crazy. But yeah, no, I really love just the atmosphere and the energy that Gen Con has. I don't know, because last year was my first year there, if this year is going to feel different because it's double the people, but we'll see. If you're on the West Coast and you're there in February, there's another smaller con about half the size called Genghis Con, and I'll be there for that next year as well. That's a lot more. That is literally tabletop gaming. I did nothing but play tabletop games for 4 days straight, and I loved every minute of it. And that could be from simple creators that are just trying out their product for the first time, up to Adventure League growth and all that. But it was just so much fun. So hopefully we can figure out a place to meet up with as many Misfits as we can. So curiosity, do you play ever with people streaming into you? Because I want to play.
I haven't, because especially up until now, because my internet connection was so poor. I just got Starlink, which is still poor but fantastic compared to what I had. So to give you I haven't done that before. I've always been for me, and this is just a personal thing, for me, if I'm on the screen, I feel like I should be playing WoW or Skyrim or something. For me, tabletop gaming is literally around the table. So I may do it someday in the future, but the problem is that my waiting list is so long. I cut it off at 10 because people don't drop out for the most part. So it's, I'm not going to have to, okay, you're number 15 on the list. I'd get through one person. And then, I think I've only replaced 1 or 2 people, and some of that was my decision to replace them. Right. So I haven't done that. I'd have to see how well that could work, because I'm wondering how this is happening in my living room, right? Everybody looks at the stuff, so they think it's some big product. It's in my living room.
Oh yeah, no.
So then it becomes, how do I work the cameras in order to get close enough so you can actually see the details? Is my upload speed fast enough that it's not graining the video? Because otherwise, what's the point of having a detailed layout if you're just seeing it in 480p, right? You know what I mean? So there's those kind of nuances that I'd have to work through. I'd probably do it if it was like some kind of a charity event or something like that. I'd probably be more prone to doing something like that. I'm not interested in taking anything for myself, but if there was something for a good cause, I'd be happy to run a charity event that way. But generally speaking, I prefer the feeling of the in-game, where I can see people's faces, I can see all their body nuances and whatnot. A lot of it's psychology for me, and it helps me read people better and helps me gauge the flow of the story, if you will,
right?
Just by having those live interactions with people. So, and I don't know if I would miss that or not on the TV. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. So.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I mean, I was more so like, hey, if you ever need like a guest to hop in for a week, just put me on a webcam.
Okay.
I'll watch everything out in person. You can
right.
have the whole, you can have the rest of the table full. I'm just gonna sit in and watch. But
okay.
No, I really do. I really do miss the in-person game, and I think as I get some things straightened out around the house and stuff like that, and it can be put back to where I want. I got an amazing opportunity last 2 or 3 weeks ago. my oldest, who doesn't live with us anymore, is 21, and he flew in from Idaho for the weekend, or for the week. And the last day he was like, hey, I've never played, but I know you're big into it. My little brother plays with you because he's 16. And he was like, can we play? And I was like, sure, why? I don't care. Of course we can play. And it was him, his wife, my second oldest, my wife, who has never played before, and I got the GM in a live game where I was sitting at the kitchen table, and there is something unique about that feeling compared
There
to
is.
this. When it's a screen, it's one thing. Now,
Sure.
mind you, I have met some amazing people through online gaming, but there
Absolutely.
is there is a difference in the mentality and
Yeah.
the energy that comes from it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I had the good fortune of I was in the Air Force in the '90s. Yes, I'm that old, and out in Travis Air Force Base. And one of the people that I had played second edition D&D back in the day with, then he joined my Facebook group, D&D Creative Table Designs. He's looking, wow, this is great. And he's seen it, and then it turned out he was going to be in Florida near me. And so him and his son came, and we played for the first time together in whatever 35 years or whatever, and we just had a blast. It was just
Yeah.
to see him back at the table again, plus with his son, plus with a few of my other regular players. Just that experience. It's a very bonding experience, I think.
Yeah.
That brings people. I mean, just 30 some odd years just washed away, and we were right back again. We were in our early 20s all over again, just doing the thing.
Right.
We
Yeah,
didn't have
no,
these
I
setups
got
then.
I got the opportunity to do something similar while I was in the desert. And it's weird because a lot of people they go to they go to those locations, and if you've been in the military, you know that it's not the greatest place to be. You're away from family, you only have the people around you. And what most people don't know is that before I connected with Gooey Cuban, we actually launched the Misfits. This was my brainchild in the desert. Coming home, we were planning, we were 11 people strong, playing every single weekend. One night out of the week, we made sure of it. And that was the only time we were not really working.
Right.
And we'd play as long as we could. I mean, a lot of us would play until literally our eyelids were starting to
Sure.
droop.
Yeah.
That's all we had.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is something unique, and it's a unique ability to connect with people that you don't get any other way.
I saw an interview with Matt Mercer, and I don't know when the interview was filmed, but I just happened to see it, I don't know, a couple of months ago or so. And forgive me, I forgot even who the interviewer was, but he said, how long are you going to keep doing this, right? And he goes, well, part of me, wants to do it forever. He goes, but honestly, at this pace, there's no way. He goes, and what was interesting, and I thought he always strikes me as a very sincere, kind individual. Which I think is a great representative for or gateway for people coming into the tabletop gaming and Dungeons and Dragons or whatever playing game. And he goes, but honestly, he goes, there's going to come a point where we need to pass the torch, because I look forward to the day when it's just me and my friends around the table again, with no cameras and no streaming or anything, just us. We've climbed all the highest mountains. We've done all these amazing things. He goes, but and he's obviously very grateful for it. He's not, tossing off or anything, but he says there's just something about being around just the table with just your friends and having fun, and those experiences are just for you guys. It's a bonding experience that there's nothing else like it. And I agree. I mean, he needs to keep doing what he's doing. Obviously, he's making hand over fist cash. I wouldn't stop either. But at some point, and there's something to be said for that. Certainly nothing wrong with that. But I get what he's saying is, when just you and your friends around the table, it's I wouldn't call it a holy experience,
because
but
a lot of people don't see it this way. But it's weird when you talk to people who you've been playing D&D with, or who you played, rather. It's better when you played with them years ago, and the first thing they mention when you see them 10 years later is, dude, do you remember when we were around the table and I threw the Mountain Dew at you because you tried to kill me with this monster? Like those types of moments. And it's funny because anybody listening outside of you would have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
And that's the beautifulness of this game, is a lot of the moments that are crafted through this game are so intense and so detailed that they are real to the players.
Absolutely, they are. Yep.
And you can't take
it's the
that.
same thing. There's an interesting part of the human brain. I don't know why it works this way, but it's the reason why movies make money. Is you can watch, Tom Hanks at the end of Saving Private Ryan, he's laying there and he's using his gun, and there's a tank coming at him. If you know the movie or not, that's from 1998. Yeah. But whatever the case may be, and in the moment you're just like, oh my God. But in your brain intellectually knows he's Tom Hanks. He's on a yacht right now. He's sipping a bottle of champagne that's worth more than my house. You know Tom Hanks is fine. But in the moment, you're so into the movie that you can, you feel emotionally wrought, or at least not the very beginning of the movie when they're charging the beach, man. There are people that had to leave because it's so intense. You know that it's all Hollywood actors and props. But there's a part of your brain that still feels the experience, even though it intellectually knows it's not real. D&D is the same way. It's not real. Dragons aren't real. I mean, photo dragons and dragonflies, but dragons aren't real that breathe fire. But game, when you're playing with your friends, they're real, man. You feel the experience, and it's a great experience.
It is. It is an absolutely great experience, and it definitely segues us to just. I hate to say that this is the end of our night.
It is. It's 10:30.
It's 10:30. The tavern's been open now an hour and a half. We've had some great talk about what D&D really means to people, and how you can use terrain to tell the story rather than just to combat. I hope that you all get some amazing tips out of this. I've been writing all night. This is why I tell people, bring your pints, bring your notebooks, and bring your smiles, because these are the three things that I use every week to come up with new ideas and new techniques to enhance my games. And I hope that this just matches, this helps one game master out there to enhance theirs, because that is the absolute goal of this channel. So starting, so for everybody that's still here, the tavern is closed. So please make sure that you come back on Sunday as we launch episode 3 of Plots in Darkenhaven, which is our episodic adventures through the mystical world or the mystical city of Darkenhaven. And next Wednesday, we're going to have DM Mandy. She is another professional game master, though she does it similar to how I do, where we have a full-time job and we also have our hobbies as well. But we're going to talk with her about NPCs and improv, because I love finding unique ways to make NPCs unique, to make them feel real, and to just bring those characters to life, because we've built the terrain and the environment and made that feel real. Now we got to populate it with people, and that's what we're going to talk about next week. So I look forward to it. I hope everybody comes and hangs out with us on Sunday and then comes back on Wednesday. Tell your friends. This thing will be up on YouTube in 2 days. Make sure that you go out there, hit the little bell icons to notify that we drop our stuff, and subscribe, because that's just helping more people get this knowledge out. If you haven't already, please follow us on Twitch and all that fun stuff. This is the part of the night that I'm not a big fan of, because I just got to rattle off a bunch of junk, because I would rather just sit here and talk about D&D all night. But thank you once again, Todd, for coming. I hope you had a good time. And until then, we will see you guys all on Sunday for Plots in Darkenhaven, episode 3, The Beasts of Riverside. Until then, I'll see you next week.